I am a longtime CRPG fan, and at the end of this review had to find 5 things I don't like and limit myself to 5 things I do like about this game. Stick around to see how that turned out. Is 5 hours playtime enough to review Pillars of Eternity? Probably not, but here we go. Pillars of Eternity is an RPG brought to us by the fans in 2012. Okay, they started the financing with a Kickstarter, but ultimately it was Obsidian Entertainment and Paradox Interactive that released the game in March of 2015. This is a spiritual successor to the Baldur's Gate series and similar games, and it made it to Xbox in August of 2017. I played this on an Xbox One X using a 27-inch 4K HDR monitor. I wore Turtle Beach Stealth 600 headphones and used the standard Xbox One controller for the experience. My system info is down below if you're interested. As I mentioned earlier, this game is the spiritual successor to the Baldur's Gate and Planescape games, and as such it plays very much the same way. Anyone familiar with this style of game will recognize it and settle right in without any hesitation. The game's art style is one of fantasy realism, and some of the set pieces almost feel painted at times. The isometric view is instantly familiar, as I mentioned, and the graphics are appropriate for the age of the game. 4K is doing this game no favors. It's not pixelated, but it's not anything that'll knock your socks off either. It is pleasant to look at, but you won't want to spend a ton of time just sightseeing. The music is thematic and appropriate to the action. It doesn't play constantly, but it can still get repetitive over time. The sounds used for the background and actions are appropriate to what's going on. They add to the game and draw you in a little bit, and they're definitely not a distraction. This game is regularly $50 on Xbox. When I recorded this, it was $12.50, but not for long. It's likely going to be closer to $30 to $40 after the current sale expires, and that only as long as it's available with the Game Pass discount. Speaking of Game Pass, this was a Gamepass Quest in the month that I did the review. The quest was to defeat 5 enemies. It took me an hour and 20 minutes. Now, 30 minutes of that was character building, and I'd have a search everything approach to these types of RPGs. I don't like to miss anything. I gained no achievements before I completed the quest, so this should be an achievement-safe quest, and for the average person, using a throwaway character and run-through gameplay, you'll probably finish this significantly faster. I'd guess you could probably get it done in as little as 15 minutes if you really tried. If you like hearing about Game Pass games, and more specifically the quests associated with them as they come out, make sure you subscribe down below. The more people who subscribe, the more I can justify spending the time needed to get these out right as the quests come live, as opposed to right before the quests go away. This game starts with character creation, as most RPGs do. You are creating the main character that you'll be playing. The story is about you, the main character, your choices, and how they affect the world. This is a chosen one story. Your character is special, and part of the game is finding out how you're special, why you're special, and using that in the way you best see fit. You meet other characters along the way. They come in and out of your party as their stories play out and as you control and dictate. These characters have a personality, and while they're in your party and you enter into different scripted conversations, there's going to be some interplay amongst your party members. This party can be up to 6 strong. It must always include your main character. There are going to be extra people that you can have associated, they just can't necessarily go out with you every single time. When it comes to the story, I have a lot left to learn. I'm only a few hours into a game that, based on howlongtobeat.com, will likely take me 70-ish, possibly over 100 hours once I get all the side quests done, and I know I'm going to get sidetracked by them. What I can say so far is it's a solid story with nice detail and vivid characters. I can say this as there are side quests which I've managed to complete already, and they've already proven to be rich, and even a little bit of moral dilemma going on in a couple of them. Again, this is just a few hours in. There's a lot more for me to discover in this game. This is a solid single-player RPG, and the story is solid. The gameplay in this, as I mentioned before, uses that isometric view. It is real-time with pausing available. This makes combat a little bit more tactical and a little less action-oriented. You can pause the action at any time, issue new orders, reposition your party, kind of react to what's going on in the fight. I am playing this on easy, and the tactics you choose aren't as important on easy as they are in the more difficult settings. I know this is true thanks to someone who stopped by my stream while I was getting footage, chatting with me a little bit about the game. In the more difficult settings, you'll need to carefully manage how your characters deploy in the battle, positioning them for maximum effectiveness and safety. The battles will of course be harder as well. An early battle against one large enemy apparently has 4 on the hardest setting. You too can be part of the review process. Subscribe to me here on YouTube and set up a notification, or head on over to Twitch where I use the same username, Granavix, and follow me there so you can get notified when I go live. Hop on in, see what game we're reviewing, and give some of your opinions. You'll help shape the review, and it'll be better for you and I both, as well as anyone else who comes along to watch it. Truthfully, there is a lot of gameplay here I haven't been able to experience yet. There's 11 classes. Sure, I understand how most of them work as a longtime CRPG player, but not the specific nuances of this game. There's real depth to the gameplay here that I just will not be able to experience until I'm at least 30 to 40 hours in. With my current schedule, that could take quite a while for this game. The gamepad controls in this game take some getting used to. I've played this style of game on PCs with keyboard and mouse a lot, and they've always worked wonderfully. The big thing here is lack of buttons to get in and out of menus properly. To combat this, the trigger buttons on the controller are set up to create circular select and click menus. Each of those options would normally be a single button press, possibly a 2 keypad combo on the keyboard. This works on the joystick, but it takes some getting used to. The main gameplay loop here is really the story. It's filled with smaller quest loops throughout. The quests are varied, some are fetch quests, some are kill quests, some are go talk to people quests. Each quest grants experience, which leads to greater power for the characters in the party, which leads to more difficult quests falling into your reach. The main story helps you pull forward as the side quests fill in the world. I can see replaying this to experience the different classes and how they interact. There's also the idea of getting all the side quests you might have missed in your first playthrough, and just like a favorite book or movie, people often come back to story-based games like this just for the familiarity of playing one of their all-time favorites and enjoying a comfortable story that they already know and can just experience and enjoy, as opposed to the little bit different take you have on a game when you're experiencing it the first time and you're discovering. Every game I come up with 5 things I'm not a huge fan of, and in some games that's harder than others. For this game, I'm going to start with the tutorial, or the lack thereof. The in-game documentation is extensive, don't get me wrong, but in some cases the tutorial part of it felt a little bit lacking, and I would have needed to dig deeper into the documentation on my own to find the info that I really needed at that point. Now this next one I'm going to preface by reminding you, I was playing this on the Xbox. There's a UI element in the bottom right, and it's the real-time feed of what's happening, specifically during combat. All the attacks and damage scroll by. As a tactical RPG, or at least the tactical aspect to the combat here, this display is actually very important, and on the Xbox, it is tiny. There is almost no history visible, and ultimately, it's practically useless. Now, there might be a way to expand it on Xbox, but it wasn't clear and I didn't go digging to find it. I did fire the game up on PC just to double check, and you can easily resize that on a PC. The next one is more about me and my psyche than a ding on the game itself, and that is, quests can stay open for quite a while. I have a bit of OCD in this, and having quests open for long periods of time really kind of bugs me and gets under my skin. I like to close out quests before I get too many more open, and it's gotten more compulsive for me to do this over the years. I once used to be a very proud multitasker and would have had no problem having a screen full of open quests, but I digress. There are some moments in this game where it feels a little bit static. This is something that's largely dependent on the game engine. The engine used in this game just cannot support the type of NPC autonomy that we're used to in more modern MMO-style RPGs. So instead of the game feeling like it doesn't care what you're doing, it's always going to move forward, it does tend to feel every now and then like it's sitting around waiting for you. Finally, and this one should come as no surprise, the Xbox controls. I mentioned earlier that I've played these types of games on PC with a keyboard and mouse a lot in the past. That experience is, without a doubt, better. There's no other way to put it. I'm glad to see this game here on Xbox, giving more gamers a chance to experience it, but this genre, and specifically on this engine, just does not translate very well to using a controller versus a keyboard and mouse. The opposite of not being a huge fan of something is to like it, maybe even give it a thumbs up, like you should do for this video if you enjoy this review style format. That tells YouTube you like these reviews, it gets more of them into your newsfeed, it tells me you like them, and it helps me make more of them. If you don't like this video, drop a comment down below. Tell me what you think I could do different to improve it and help meet your needs as someone looking for reviews of these games. For this game, I liked a lot. Sure, it may be partially due to CRPGs being basically my favorite type of game since, I don't know, boomer times, but that's not all. There really are things to like. For instance, the background artwork. There were times that it really did feel like you were wandering through a painting. Some of those backgrounds were just really well done. Sure, you could point to some modern AAA titles that put this to shame with their ray tracing graphics, but for the style of the game and the age of it, it is very nice. The storytelling is another thing I really like. I have a preference to single player as it is, and this game is a great single player story driven game. This game also has a solid pace. It allows you to speed up and slow down the game engine a little bit depending on what you're doing. So for instance, you could slow the game engine down a little bit during combat, and you can speed the game engine up a little bit while you're kind of wandering through a town that you've been in and seen everything in, but just need to get from one end to the other. The game is also very accessible, largely due to the differing difficulty levels available. Now, that's not to say accessible in like the high contrast and audio cue way. I honestly don't have enough experience with that type of accessibility to let you know how this game fares there. I just mean it's accessible to people with varied skill levels. And this is the different difficulty settings. You've got a story mode, and you've got all the way into the hardcore setting that you only get one chance. Anyone with any level of experience of this type of game could get through the story the game is telling and enjoy it along the way. Finally, for me, this game is very nostalgic. Call it rose-tinted goggles all you want, but playing this game is kind of like visiting a happy memory for me. If it's not obvious already, this is a solid buy in my book as a final verdict. Even without my connection to this game and genre, this is a full-fledged story-driven RPG. There's nothing to not like here. The $50 price does feel a little steep, but at anything $35 and under, this game is a steal, and it's a great value at $40. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the review. Make sure you hang out on the channel. Maybe you'll catch me doing a stream review and you can help out, or maybe you can just see the latest Xbox Game Pass games that have quests coming up on them played out and given a brief review just like this one.